this sort of gaslighting, I think there's been this incredible dissociation. It's indoctrinated in us from childhood to not trust our intuition, right? Like to think we have to give our power away because we're dumb and we're not smart. And it's built into every level of the healthcare system. I mean, in many American states, patients don't even own their healthcare records because basically doctors don't trust patients in understanding that they can understand.
Legally, they don't
own them. Like the doctor or the hospital does, because we have so built in this idea that patients are not smart enough to understand their own health. So from this even plays into HIPAA and all these laws about patient privacy. It's like, we have to sequester. Have you ever tried to get your healthcare records? It's impossible, right? Because
I don't know my own blood type, and I don't know anyone else who knows his own blood type.
That's
Why is that?
By design, right? Because if you can keep people
Why wouldn't you know your blood type?
Because if you can keep people ignorant about their own health, then there's a power dynamic where you can sort of give them any solution. So this gets back to food, because I think a lot of this comes back to trusting our intuition. Every Sunday after I go to the farmer's market, I lay out all the food, the venison that came from, someone who owns a beautiful ranch outside of LA, the beautiful heirloom tomatoes that are colorful with purples, the watermelon radishes, and I lay it all out on my counter and I literally pray with it. Like this is awe-inspiring to me. This is all the atoms and the molecules that over the next week or two are going to make up my cells. They are going to become me. I am going to take on the characteristics of this food. And I know, I look at that food, and if I stop and let myself trust my intuition, I know this food is healthy for me. I just know it. But we've been so divorced from our common sense by design. There's no fat giraffes, right? They know, right? But we've been told that we can't understand. Every sixth grader in America can understand basic biology, metabolic health, and nutrition, but we have been told it's too complicated. Like Calley said, by design, confusion is the product. So to answer your question, what makes me feel good? It's the freshest, most beautiful foods that I have complete and utter awe for, because those molecules and atoms are going to go into my body. They're going to heal anything that's going wrong. They're going to change my gene expression. They're going to fortify my immune system. They're going to feed my microbiome, which makes 95% of my serotonin, which lets me think and have creative ideas and love my partner and all these things. It's going to be my partner and my bodies and my future children's bodies, right? And so I am in awe and reverence of food. And I think that I bless it because it's going to become me. And I think we need to get back to that appreciation.
Shouldn't the medical authorities, take policy aside, what if our medical leaders started talking about this? We have a medical crisis.
I've never heard anybody talk like that.
We have a medical crisis. We have a medical crisis right now, and that is the science. That is following the science, right? And that should be the message from doctors. And Casey, I don't want to gloss over this. There's a metabolic health crisis among babies that are born. Mothers are passing metabolic dysfunction and essentially almost prediabetes onto kids en masse. That's how bad this has gotten. Like kids are being born with dysfunctional microbiomes and metabolic dysfunction. And literally I've talked to Harvard doctors about that. I talked on one of the podcasts about this to a Harvard doctor. And she said that's a case for Ozempic, that babies are being born with such horrible metabolic dysfunction that we need to start jabbing them right away. I say that's a sign of a crisis. And the fact that babies are being born sick is actually, maybe we shouldn't be doing more of the same and just keep drugging them more. We should actually be asking why there's a metabolic health crisis among babies.
Yeah, there's a crisis in the way that we think.
Yeah.
I think
it's a root of a lot of, I think, what's happening. The biggest societal, I think, historical dynamic of the past, decade has been this populist uprising towards institutions. I don't think people can quite put their finger on it all the time, but there's this frustration that we're being let down. To me, what's happening to our health and the gaslighting that's happening to our health, and the fact that we're not hearing things like this and hearing that drugs are our saviors and just keep doing more of the same from industries that are profiting from that sickness. To me, it is the number one example of what's fueling this populist frustration. Healthcare is the largest industry, and it's something that's these incentives, I think I would argue, are impacting Americans across the kitchen table and impacting their lives more than any other industry.
Can I just ask one last question?
Yeah.
So one of the things I noticed about both of you is your mental acuity. Obviously, you're smart, but it's more than just smart. You're sharp and fast, and you have very quick recall. You're just crisp. I notice the way people talk, obviously, because I talk for a living. How big so bad food dulls you? I've always noticed that.
Absolutely. Well, for so many reasons, Tucker, but to name a couple of them, if you have a big blood sugar swing, which the average American, because the vast majority of our calories are coming from ultra-processed food that turn into glucose in our bloodstream, blood sugar, right? When you have a big glucose spike and crash, that is associated with reduced fat recall. Literally that crash and spike, like the post-meal crash, like you eat something and then you might feel lethargic afterwards. That's in part because your blood sugar is skyrocketing and crashing. The average American child is probably on this roller coaster all day long. We want stable, steady blood sugar levels. So we're not
making
crashing.
us dumber then.
So that's the short term, right? Over the long term, we're building the machine of the body out of shoddy materials, right? And that's going to impact our brains. It's going to impact our, the way that we think. And, our microbiome makes a lot of our neurotransmitters. And we are just trashing our microbiome now, right? With ultra-processed food, no fiber. Fiber feeds the microbiome. The 95% of Americans aren't getting enough fiber. So we're not feeding the thing inside of us that makes our neurotransmitters, that helps us think. This is insanity. And then we're trashing the microbiome with antibiotics, which destroy we're overusing antibiotics like crazy, which destroy our microbiome and increase our risk of depression and other issues.
3 times more suicidal than the year after taking them.
There is just, it's the all out warfare. And it makes you kind of step back and think like, what's happening here? Like we have this kind of like, sort of like doled out, dumb, I'm not saying the Americans, I'm saying that like, it's making
There's forces that want
it's
them
reducing
dull.
our IQs. It's making us lose our minds early with Alzheimer's. It's making our kids not able to sit down and learn because of ADHD and autism rates that are skyrocketing. And it's all going up all at once. And we know it's because of our toxic food systems and the chemicals in our environment. And we're not protecting kids. And that is very sinister. And I think, on the biggest macro level, like at the kind of the most zoomed out spiritual level, like I think, what we have to realize is that like we are miracles. Like every human is a miracle. This life is a miracle. Like this is spiritual beings having this insane experience on planet Earth. And fundamentally, the thing that we're doing with metabolic health is we're making energy in the body, right? The way we're doing that is we're taking food that got its energy from the sun, right? Like the sun literally, photosynthesis happens, it creates starches in plants, and then we eat them or animals eat them. And what metabolism is taking the starches that are stored energy from the sun through photosynthesis, liberating it in our bodies to create energy to fuel our minds and to fuel our bodies so that we can think and reach our highest purpose. And right now, in the vast majority of Americans, our toxic food system is blocking that process, which means it's blocking the miraculous process of essentially taking this beautiful, this is not woo-woo, this is just fact of science, taking this universal sun, light energy, and liberating it to fuel our lives. That is broken. This is dark. This is very dark. Americans are not only sick, but the core process of being able to create, and transform energy is broken. And we need to fix this because we need all hands on deck right now in America to solve these big issues. And we need to be thinking properly, feeling good, and we can rapidly with some of these simple changes.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.